6 weeks. That is how much time my husband had left before his consulting firm closed the biggest deal of his career. A 3-year contract with a Korean tech company worth $4.2 million to the firm. His equity stake alone would jump from $180,000 to more than $500,000 overnight. I know this because he told his mother the exact numbers while standing 12 feet away from me at a baby shower. He told her in Korean. He was not worried about me hearing it. His mother was not worried either. She told him, in Korean, that I was sweet but stupid and could not read paperwork. My name is Ashley Mercer. I am 30 years old. I have a 2-year-old daughter named Lily, a lapsed paralegal license from the state of North Carolina, and a linguistics minor from a college degree that my husband never once asked me about. I speak 4 languages: English, French, Korean, conversational Spanish. Brett did not know about the last 3 because Brett stopped asking me questions about 2 years before this story starts. But I need to tell you about the baby shower. Because that is where the 6-week clock began. Balloons. The rubbery squeak of them bumping against the ceiling. Pink ones. White ones. One shaped like a baby bottle already losing air near the hallway. Women laughing in the living room. That bright practiced sound that meant someone was performing happiness for an audience. The apartment smelled like buttercream frosting and something floral sprayed from a can. Too perfect, the way real flowers never are. I was standing by the gift table holding a glass of seltzer I did not want. My feet hurt in shoes I had bought specifically for today because Brett told me my sneakers made me look like I had given up. I had been smiling for 2 hours. The muscles in my cheeks had gone past sore into something numb and mechanical. Jenna was across the room in a white dress with both hands resting on her belly. 7 months pregnant. Glowing. She caught my eye and waved with her fingers. That little flutter we had been doing since freshman year. And I waved back. She looked happy. I remember thinking that. I remember wanting to hold on to the thought, because I could not remember the last time I had felt it myself. Lily was at home with the babysitter. I kept checking my phone. No texts. Lily was fine. Lily was always fine. I just needed something to look at besides the gift table because the frosting smell was starting to press behind my eyes. I went to the kitchen to refill my water. The hallway connecting the living room to the back bedroom was narrow and dim. The kind of hallway nobody used during a party. It dead-ended at a window with the blinds half drawn. Brett and Lorraine were standing at the far end of it. Their backs were to me. Lorraine had her hand on Brett's elbow. Their heads were close together, voices low, almost inaudible under the noise of the party drifting in from the other room. They were speaking Korean. Brett had learned Korean over 10 years of consulting for Korean tech companies, expanding into the American market. He was nearly fluent. His mother, Lorraine, had lived in Seoul for 3 years back in the 90s. Some international trade position she mentioned at every Thanksgiving dinner, and she had taught Brett his first words when he was still in grade school. Korean was their private frequency, their locked channel. They had been using it as a wall between themselves and everyone else since before Brett's father died, and a decade of never being caught had made them careless. They picked the quietest corner they could find, kept their voices down, and never once considered that the wall they trusted had a door. Brett said, "The baby is mine." Jenna confirmed it. My hand was on the edge of the kitchen counter. The seltzer glass was empty. I could hear ice shifting at the bottom. Lorraine said, "Good. When are you filing?" Brett said, "Before the deal closes. The equity transfer goes through after the divorce." Lorraine said, "Do not worry about her. She is sweet but stupid. She would not know how to read a legal document if it landed on her lap." She said it in Korean. Every consonant crisp, every syllable, shaped the way she had learned it in Seoul 30 years ago. I stood in that hallway, and my brain did something it had not done in 2 years. It went back to work. Not the shaking kind, not the crying kind, the sorting kind, the kind that organized case files at Morrison and Webb and never missed a date or a decimal point. 3 facts. I arranged them the way I used to arrange exhibits. First, my husband had a child with Jenna, my best friend. The woman in the white dress in the next room who had waved at me 30 seconds ago with the same fingers she had been using since we were 18. Second, there was a divorce plan. Not a thought, not a maybe. A plan with a filing date and a timeline built around a business deal. Third, there was an equity transfer engineered to close after the divorce, which meant there was a financial structure underneath this. Which meant someone had set up paperwork, which meant there were documents, which meant there was a trail. Trails do not disappear. I learned that on my first day as a paralegal. Money always leaves a mark. The only question is whether anyone bothers to look. I did not drop the glass. My fingers did not go slack. My breathing stayed where it was. I processed the 3 facts the way I had been trained to process a case file, which is without opinion, without interruption, and without letting the contents change the temperature of my hands. I turned around, walked back into the living room, found Jenna near the gift table unwrapping a box of onesies, put my hand on her arm, and told her she looked amazing. Jenna laughed and squeezed my fingers. "You are the best," she said. "I literally cannot do this without you." I smiled at my best friend. Told her the cupcakes were perfect. Told her everything was so beautiful. Then I told her I needed to use the bathroom. I locked the door. Sat down on the edge of the bathtub. I did not cry. I opened the Notes app on my phone and typed the date, the time, the address of the apartment, and every sentence I had heard, as close to word for word as I could manage. 4 lines in Korean characters. 4 lines of English translation directly underneath. I read it twice, checked the timestamp, saved. Then I closed the app, flushed the toilet so the sound would carry, washed my hands long enough for the faucet to be convincing, and walked back out into the party with my face arranged the way it had been arranged for 5 years. Lorraine called me sweet but stupid. Brett forgot I had ever been anything other than his wife. Jenna believed I was the kind of friend who would never look too closely. All 3 of them were standing in the same room as me, and not one of them knew that the woman they had dismissed had just opened a file she was never going to close. I understood every syllable his mother said, and for the first time in my marriage, I was grateful she thought I was stupid. Brett drove us home. Or rather, I drove us home because Brett had 2 glasses of Prosecco at the shower and I had seltzer. And that was the arrangement. He sat in the passenger seat scrolling his phone with his thumb, the screen tilted slightly away from me the way it always was. And I kept my eyes on the road and my hands at 10 and 2 and my breathing steady. "That was nice," Brett said. He did not look up from his phone. "Jenna seems really happy." "She does," I said. "We should help her out more. She is going through a lot, you know. Being a single mom and everything." Single mom. With his child. That he had planned. "Of course," I said. "That is what friends do." Brett made a sound that was half agreement and half yawn. Then he switched subjects the way he always did. A clean pivot with no transition. As if the previous topic had simply stopped existing. "Busy quarter," he said. "The Korean partnership is keeping me up at night. I have calls at midnight sometimes. Korean partnership. Midnight calls." The words sounded different now. Everything he said sounded different now. The way a room looks different after someone turns on a light you did not know was there. I was hearing the same sentences I had heard for months, but the translation had changed. I said nothing. He did not notice. We pulled into the driveway. The porch light was on. Through the living room window, I could see the blue flicker of the television Rachel had left running. Brett got out, stretched, checked his phone one more time, and walked inside ahead of me without holding the door. Rachel met me in the hallway. Lily had eaten her dinner, played with blocks, gone down at 7:30 without a fight. I thanked Rachel, paid her, watched her car pull out, then I went upstairs to check on Lily. She was asleep on her back with one arm flung above her head and the other clutching the ear of a stuffed rabbit she refused to sleep without. Her breathing was slow and even. The room smelled like baby shampoo and the lavender lotion I rubbed on her feet every night because she liked the way it felt between her toes. I stood in the doorway and watched her breathe. She was 2 years old. She had my hair and Brett's jawline and a laugh that sounded like someone shaking a bag of marbles. She did not know that her father had another child coming. She did not know that her mother had spent the last 3 hours smiling at a party while her entire life was being disassembled in a language nobody expected her to understand. I leaned down and pressed my lips to her forehead. Her skin was warm. Her fingers twitched around the rabbit's ear. I have been his wife for 5 years, I thought. But when did I stop being anything else? It was not a question. It was a fact I had been avoiding. And standing in my daughter's room at 8:45 on a Saturday night, it arrived without permission and would not leave. Brett was in the shower. I could hear the water running through the wall. He sang in the shower sometimes, old 90s songs he half remembered, and tonight he was humming something I could not place. He sounded relaxed. He sounded like a man who believed his evening had gone exactly according to plan. I went downstairs, past the living room where the television was still on, walked to the end of the hall and opened the door to the home office. Brett kept financial documents in the bottom drawer of the filing cabinet next to his desk. He had never locked it. He had never needed to, because I had never opened it. Because for 2 years I had been the version of myself who did not open drawers or ask questions or read fine print. That version of me had done what she was told and smiled when she was expected to and fallen asleep on the couch by 9 o'clock every night. That version of me was no longer available. I pulled the drawer open. Quietly. The metal runners squeaked once and I stopped. Listened for the shower. Still running. Tax returns first. 3 years. His income had gone up each year. Our joint savings had gone down. That was a direction those 2 lines should never move in at the same time. Bank statements next. Cash withdrawals every 2 weeks. 500 here, 800 there. Nothing large enough to trigger an alert, but consistent, rhythmic, like someone making payments on something they did not want anyone to see. Then the credit card. A separate card I had never seen before, billed to a business address, labeled Korean Client Entertainment across the top. I pulled the last 3 statements and spread them on the desk. $340 at La Perla. That is a lingerie store. $180 every single week at the same address. 1504 Elm Street. Apartment 3B. Every Tuesday. Like clockwork. $2,200 at a boutique hotel on the same weekend. Brett told me he was at a conference in Charlotte. I photographed every page. Both sides. Held the phone steady. Checked the images were sharp. Moved to the next. It was the same motion I had done thousands of times at Morrison and Webb. Documenting exhibits before trial. Making sure the record was clean. My hands remembered even if the rest of me had forgotten. At the bottom of the drawer, underneath a folder of old insurance papers, I found a notebook. Small. Navy blue. Soft cover with a crease down the spine from being opened too many times. I knew what it was before I opened it. I had not seen it in 8 years. My Korean notebook from college. Pages filled with my own handwriting, small and tight, crammed into the margins. Notes in 3 languages on the same line. English for the grammar rules. French for the comparisons. Korean characters I had drawn over and over until the strokes felt automatic. The last entry was dated 8 years ago. The girl who wrote it was 22 and studying 4 languages because the world seemed like a place that rewarded people who paid attention. I sat on the floor of the office with the notebook on my knees and the credit card statements fanned out beside me and the sound of my husband humming in the shower above my head. 4 languages. I used to carry 4 languages in my head. Then I married a man who barely asked me one question in English. I closed the notebook. I did not cry. I put every document back exactly where I had found it. Same order, same angle, same depth in the drawer. I slid the drawer shut. I turned off the desk lamp. Then I went upstairs and got into bed next to the man who was planning to steal $185,000 from me. And I lay there in the dark. And I breathed. And I waited for morning. Sunday morning. Brett was making coffee. The machine hissed and gurgled on the counter, and he stood next to it with his phone in one hand and a mug in the other, wearing the gray sweatpants he always wore on weekends. Lily was in her high chair, methodically destroying a banana with both fists, smearing it across the tray in patterns that looked like cave paintings. The kitchen smelled like dark roast and overripe fruit and dish soap from the sink I had not emptied the night before. Brett walked over and kissed my forehead. "I love you, babe," he said. Then he poured his coffee and sat down across from me and opened his phone and disappeared into it the way he did every morning. Already somewhere else before his body had finished arriving. Normal. All of it. The coffee, the kiss, the banana, the phone. A Sunday morning so ordinary it could have come from a catalog, and underneath it, a crawl space full of documents and Korean sentences, and a credit card billed to a lingerie store under the heading of Client Entertainment. My phone buzzed on the table. I glanced at it. An email notification. The sender line read Callaway & Strauss Consulting, which was Brett's firm, and the subject line read Hanjin Tech, Partnership Timeline, 2nd quarter. I had been copied, not on purpose. Someone at the firm, the CPA, had included me on a thread meant for partners only. A mistake. One mistyped address in a distribution list. I opened it. The email contained a timeline for a deal between Brett's firm and Hanjin Tech, a Korean technology company expanding into the American market. The contract was worth $4.2 million over 3 years. Attached to the email was a valuation summary showing each partner's equity stake before and after the deal closed. Brett's name was highlighted in yellow. Current equity value, $180,000. Post-deal equity value, $550,000. The difference was $370,000. Half of that was mine. Under North Carolina equitable distribution law, which I knew because I had spent 4 years preparing family law files at Morrison & Webb, marital assets acquired during the marriage are subject to division. Brett's equity in that firm was a marital asset, and half of $370,000 is $185,000. That was the number. That was what the shell company and the Korean conversation and the divorce timeline were designed to steal from me. I stared at the email. Brett was 3 feet away. "Everything okay?" he asked, without looking up. "Lily's play date got canceled," I said. "Oh." He took a sip of coffee. "Well, more time for us. More time for us." He said that with a straight face, while his girlfriend carried what he believed was his child, and his mother held a shell company with my future locked inside it. And a deal worth $500,000 in equity was 8 weeks from closing? He sat across from me at our kitchen table and said, "More time for us," and meant absolutely none of it. I closed the email, locked my phone, picked up a piece of banana from the floor where Lily had thrown it, and wiped the spot with a napkin. Then I opened my messages and typed a text to the group thread from Morrison & Webb, the one with 4 paralegals and a receptionist who still sent birthday memes every month. I wrote, "Can anyone recommend a family law attorney in Raleigh? Asking for a friend." 15 minutes later, while Brett was in the living room reading Lily a board book about a caterpillar, my phone buzzed. A reply from Sandra, senior paralegal, the one who never forgot a referral, Priscilla Webb, no relation to the firm. She is the best in North Carolina for financial cases. Do not let her scare you. She is like that with everyone. I saved the number. Brett was holding Lily on the couch. He lifted her above his head, and she laughed. That marble bag laugh. And he laughed too. And they looked like every photograph of a happy father and daughter that has ever been used to sell insurance or breakfast cereal. For a moment, I let myself watch them. For a moment, I let the debate happen. If I fight this, Lily loses her father. Not in the dead sense, in the broken sense. The weekends and holidays sense. The 2 houses, 2 bedrooms, 2 sets of rules sense. She was 2 years old, and she would not remember what it was like before. But she would spend the rest of her childhood learning what after meant. If I stay quiet, Lily loses everything else. Financial security, a mother who respects herself, a home that is not built on top of a lie so large it has its own filing cabinet. I thought about staying quiet. For Lily, for the appearance of peace. Then I looked at the banana smeared across the high chair tray and the crumbs on the floor and the man on the couch who was laughing with my daughter while planning to leave us both. And I understood something clearly. This is not peace. This is a hostage situation. With better furniture, I went to the bedroom, closed the door, dialed the number Sandra had sent me. It rang twice. A voice answered, direct, no warmth, no filler. Priscilla Webb. My name is Ashley Mercer, I said. I need to see you tomorrow morning. My husband is hiding equity in a shell company controlled by his mother, and I have 6 weeks before a deal closes that will cost me $185,000. There was a pause, not a hesitation. The pause of someone rearranging her. Monday, 8 o'clock, Priscilla said. Bring everything you have. Documents, photos, screenshots, anything. And Ashley, do not touch anything in the house between now and then. Do not move money. Do not confront him. Do not change a single thing about your routine. Act normal. I have been acting normal for 5 years, I said. I am very good at it. Another pause. Shorter this time. Then Priscilla said, good, because you are going to need that. I hung up. Sat on the edge of the bed. Through the wall, I could hear Brett making Lily giggle with a voice he used for her stuffed animals. Through the closed door, I could hear the coffee machine beep, signaling the pot was done. I stood up, opened the door, walked back to the kitchen to pour myself a cup. And from the living room, low enough that he thought I could not hear, Brett spoke into his phone in Korean. He was talking to Lorraine. I will send the documents tomorrow, he said. I did not look up. I poured the coffee. I added cream. I took a sip. Then I opened the Notes app on my phone and typed, Sunday, 9:12 a.m. Brett called Lorraine. Korean. Quote, I will send the documents tomorrow. I saved it next to the entry from the baby shower. 2 notes now. 2 timestamps. The beginning of a file. Brett walked into the kitchen carrying Lily on his hip. Want to take her to the park? He asked. Sure, I said. Let me finish my coffee. He smiled. I smiled back. We went to the park. Priscilla Webb's office was on the 4th floor of a building downtown that smelled like old carpet and printer toner. The waiting room had 2 chairs and a plastic plant and a framed law degree from Wake Forest with a crack in the glass that nobody had fixed. There was no receptionist. Priscilla opened the door herself at exactly 8 o'clock, looked at me once from head to toe, and said, Come in. She was 48. Hair pulled back tight enough to stretch the skin at her temples, reading glasses on a chain around her neck. No jewelry except a watch with a leather band. Her desk was covered in folders, and her chair had a dent in the cushion from years of long days. She did not offer coffee. She did not ask how I was doing. "Start from the beginning," Priscilla said. "Not the affair. The money." So I did. I laid out the equity, the LLC, Lorraine's name on the filing, the Hanjin deal and its timeline, the email I had been copied on by accident, the credit card statements, the cash withdrawals, the Korean conversations at the baby shower. I did it in order. The way I used to lay out case summaries at Morrison and Webb. Facts first. Interpretation second. Opinion never. Priscilla listened without interrupting. When I finished, she took off her reading glasses and set them on the desk. "How do you know all this?" she asked. "Not suspicious." Impressed. "I am a paralegal," I said. "Former," she said. "The training does not expire." Priscilla leaned back. Something shifted behind her eyes. Not warmth, exactly. Recognition. The way one soldier looks at another. "Here is what we are going to do," she said. "First, I file for divorce on your behalf. The moment that filing hits the system, it triggers an automatic temporary restraining order on all marital assets. That means Brett cannot move money, sell property, or transfer equity without court approval. Everything freezes." She counted the rest on her fingers. "Second, we subpoena the operating agreement for his firm. Third, I bring in a forensic accountant to trace every dollar that went into that LLC. Fourth, every cent he spent on his girlfriend comes back to you through a dissipation claim. And fifth, because this is North Carolina, you can file an alienation of affection suit against the girlfriend herself." I asked about the Korean, whether I could use what I had heard. "You overheard a conversation at a public gathering," Priscilla said. "That is admissible as witness testimony, but here is the better play. If he continues to speak Korean in front of you, and he will because he does not know you understand, and you record it on your own phone while you are physically present in the room, then that recording is legal. North Carolina is a one-party consent state. You are the consenting party." She said it the way someone explains a card trick after the show is over. Simple. Clean. Already decided. I nodded. "One more thing," Priscilla said. She paused. And for the first time, she looked at me the way people look at someone they are about to trust with something personal. 10 years ago, my husband did something similar. I was a first-year attorney, and I still lost half of everything because I was too proud to hire someone better than me. She put her glasses back on. I do not lose anymore. I walked out of that office with a legal strategy, a court date to file before the week was out, and the first clear breath I had taken in 48 hours. Over the next 2 weeks, the pieces moved. Priscilla filed the divorce papers on Wednesday. The automatic restraining order went into effect the moment the clerk processed it. Every joint account, every asset, every piece of property tied to our marriage was frozen. Brett did not know yet. The papers would be served at his office, but not until the following week. Priscilla wanted time. The forensic accountant she brought in was a woman named Dana, who wore orthopedic shoes and spoke in spreadsheets. Dana pulled the wire transfer records for the LLC. Every dollar of its funding had come from our joint savings account. $180,000 moved in a single wire to an entity called Callaway Pacific Holdings, registered under Lorraine Callaway's name. It was not a sale. It was not an investment. It was a gift disguised as a business transaction, and the paperwork had all the structural integrity of a paper napkin. Then Dana found the date. The LLC was incorporated 11 days before Jenna announced her pregnancy. 11 days. The shell company existed before the baby did, which meant the financial plan came first. The affair was not the cause of the divorce strategy. The affair was the excuse. Brett did not leave me for Jenna. Brett needed a reason to leave me before the deal closed. And Jenna gave him one. She was not the motive. She was the calendar. When Priscilla told me this, sitting across from me with the incorporation documents spread between us, I did not react the way I expected. I did not get angrier. I got quieter because it meant everything was calculated. Every kiss on the forehead, every "I love you, babe," every Sunday morning at the kitchen table. Math. All of it. Meanwhile, I needed the operating agreement for Brett's firm. Priscilla said there might be a spousal consent clause buried in the partnership documents, something that would require my signature for any equity transfer involving marital property. I told her Brett had brought the agreement home once, years ago, scanned it, and saved it to a shared Google Drive we used for household files, tax documents, insurance forms, the pediatrician's records for Lily. He had never removed my access. He had never thought to. I found the file on a Tuesday night after Lily was asleep. 47 pages. I read every one. Priscilla would review it formally, but I knew what to look for. I had read hundreds of operating agreements at Morrison and Webb. My eyes went to the transfer restrictions section the way a surgeon's hands go to a scalpel. And one evening that same week, Priscilla and I sat in her office with the credit card statements from the Korean client entertainment account spread across the table, going through them line by line. I pointed to the $340 charge at La Perla. Korean client entertainment, I said. Priscilla looked at it over her reading glasses. She did not look up. I have consulted for Samsung for 11 years, she said. Not once did they require a lace bodysuit for the quarterly review. I laughed. It came out of me before I could stop it. Short and sharp. The kind of laugh that arrives when something is so absurd that your body processes it before your brain can decide if you are allowed to find it funny. Priscilla did not smile, but the corner of her mouth moved a fraction of an inch, which I would learn was her version of a standing ovation. It was the first real laugh I had managed in 2 weeks. It tasted strange, like a muscle I had forgotten I owned. Priscilla spread the documents across her conference table the way a general spreads a map before an offensive. She used both hands. She placed each page deliberately, aligning them in a row, letting me see the full picture before she said a word. The LLC first. Callaway Pacific Holdings. Incorporated 6 weeks ago under Lorraine Callaway's name. Funded entirely by a wire transfer from our joint savings account. $180,000 moved in a single transaction. Dana, the forensic accountant, had traced every cent. The transfer was not a sale. It was not an investment at fair market value. It was our money, moved without my knowledge or consent, into an entity I was never told existed. On paper, it was a business restructuring. In reality, it was theft with better stationery. The dissipation file next. $47,000 in affair-related spending, itemized and sourced. The apartment on Elm Street. Billed weekly. The La Perla purchases. The boutique hotel in Charlotte. Restaurant receipts. A pair of earrings from a jeweler in Cameron Village that I recognized because Brett had walked past it with me once and said it was overpriced. Every dollar traced, time-stamped, and cataloged. Every dollar that should have gone to our mortgage or Lily's college fund or the joint savings account. It was quietly draining. Then, the operating agreement. 47 pages. I had found it on the shared Google Drive and read it twice before sending it to Priscilla. She had read it 3 times. And on page 31, in a section about transfer restrictions that most people would skip because it was written in the kind of language designed to make your eyes slide off the page, there it was. Clause 14, subsection B. Any transfer of equity interest by a partner who is married requires the written consent of the spouse, if such equity constitutes marital property under applicable state law. I had never signed anything. Brett had never asked me to, because Brett had never imagined that his wife, the one his mother called sweet but stupid, would find a 47-page document on a shared drive and read it all the way to page 31. The transfer was void. Under the firm's own rules, Lorraine was holding equity she had no legal right to hold. Priscilla looked at me across the table. In 20 years of practice, she said, I have never seen a case this well documented. He built the bomb, and you found the wiring diagram. I sat in that chair and something opened in my chest. Not relief, something older. Recognition. The version of me who used to sit in conference rooms at Morrison and Webb, the one who could read a 50-page contract and find the one clause that mattered, the one whose senior partner once said she had the sharpest eye for detail he had seen in 20 years. She was not gone. She had been sleeping, and she had just woken up with the entire case file organized. We have him, Priscilla said. She tapped the alienation of affection draft she had prepared against Jenna. The LLC is void. The dissipation is documented. The operating agreement requires your consent, which he never obtained. And North Carolina allows you to sue the woman who participated in destroying your marriage. We have him on every front. I should have been celebrating. I wanted to be celebrating. But something was pulling at the edge of the feeling, the way a thread catches on a nail when you are trying to walk past. Priscilla? I said. What about Lily? Priscilla looked up. Custody, she said. You are the primary caregiver. His work hours, the affair, the financial deception. You are in a very strong position. That is not what I mean, I said. I looked at the documents on the table. Every page represented a piece of the life Lily knew. Her father making coffee on Sunday mornings. Her father lifting her above his head while she laughed. Her father singing in the shower through the wall. None of those things were lies. A man can be a fraud and still love his daughter. The two truths do not cancel each other out. What about Lily growing up knowing her father did this? I said. Priscilla was quiet for a long time. Not the performative silence of someone preparing a response. The real silence of someone who had been in this chair before, on the other side of the table, and knew that the answer was not a legal one. That is the part no document can fix, she said. I drove home with the windows down and the radio off. The air smelled like cut grass and car exhaust and the magnolia tree on the corner of our street that bloomed every spring, whether anyone was paying attention or not. I pulled into the driveway and turned off the engine and sat there. Winning was supposed to feel like winning. But winning meant Lily would learn, someday, that her father had planned to leave before she was old enough to form the sentence, "Please stay." Winning meant 2 bedrooms, 2 sets of rules, 2 Christmases, and a question she would carry in her body long before she had the words for it. Did Daddy leave because of me? I sat in the car for 20 minutes with my hands on the steering wheel and the engine off, and my eyes on the front door of the house that was still, technically, mine. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Priscilla. Papers served at his office at 4:12 this afternoon. He knows. I looked at the house. The lights were on. Through the living room window, I could see a shape moving. Brett was inside. Brett was home early. Brett had read the divorce filing and driven here, and he was waiting for me in the house where I had cooked his dinners and washed his shirts and fallen asleep on the couch because I was too tired from taking care of his daughter to make it to the bedroom. I picked up my phone, picked up my keys, got out of the car, walked to the front door, opened it, and stepped inside. Brett was standing at the kitchen counter with the divorce papers spread out in front of him. His tie was loosened. His sleeves were rolled to the elbows. His face was flushed in a way I had only seen twice before. Once, when a client questioned his numbers in a meeting, and once, when his mother forgot his birthday. Not the flush of embarrassment, the flush of a man whose control has been touched by someone who was not supposed to be capable of touching it. Lily was at my mother's house. I had dropped her off that afternoon before the papers were served. Priscilla had suggested it. She did not say why. She did not need to. You filed for divorce, Brett said. Yes, I said. Without talking to me first? You transferred $180,000 to your mother's LLC without talking to me first? I said. I thought we were skipping the talking part. Brett's jaw moved. A muscle near his ear tightened and released. He looked at me the way he looked at opposing counsel when they made a point he had not anticipated. Recalculating. For a moment, we stood on opposite sides of the kitchen island, and the only sound was the refrigerator humming and the faucet dripping the way it had been dripping for 3 months, because Brett kept saying he would fix it and never did. Then his voice changed. The flush faded. His shoulders dropped. He became soft, careful. Babe, he said. Let us talk about this. Come on, sit down. I did not sit down. You are doing this because you are stressed, Brett said. Being at home with Lily, it is hard. I get it. I see how tired you are. But this? Lawyers? Filing papers at my office where my partners can see? This is an overreaction, Ashley. This is not you. He said my name the way you say the name of a child you are trying to calm down. Slow, gentle, measured. As if the problem was not what he had done, but how I was processing it. Is it? I said. Brett leaned forward. We can work this out. We are a family. Whatever you think you found, whatever someone told you, we can sit down and go through it together. Just you and me. Who said anyone told me anything? I said. He caught himself. Barely. I am just saying. People get ideas. People hear things. Mothers, friends, lawyers. They push you in directions you would not go on your own. Who told you about the LLC? He said. The softness slipped for half a second. Underneath it, something sharp. Something that wanted an answer more than it wanted to sound kind. I did not give him one. I let the silence fill the kitchen the way water fills a glass. Steady and patient and completely without effort. Brett stared at me. I stared back, and somewhere in that silence he understood, for the first time, that the woman standing across from him was not the one he had been married to for 5 years. Or maybe she was, and he had simply never looked closely enough to see her. He picked up his phone, walked to the back porch, closed the sliding door behind him, but the glass was thin and the night was quiet, and I could hear him from the kitchen, pacing, speaking low and fast, in Korean. Mom, she knows, Brett said. She hired a lawyer. I do not know how she found out about the LLC. We need to move. I opened the Notes app, typed the time, typed the translation, saved it next to the others. 3 entries now. He came back inside 10 minutes later. His face had rearranged itself. He looked at me with something that was supposed to be sadness but landed closer to strategy. I'm going to stay at Mom's tonight, he said. Give us both some space. Okay, I said. He packed a bag. He did not say goodbye to Lily because Lily was not here. And he did not ask where she was. And that told me more than anything else he had said all evening. The door closed. His car started. The headlights swept across the living room wall and disappeared down the street. I locked the front door. Then I locked the back door. Then I sat at the kitchen counter where his divorce papers were still spread out, and I ate a bowl of cereal standing up because I had not eaten since breakfast. And my hands were shaking, not from fear, but from the particular kind of exhaustion that comes when you have been holding your face perfectly still for 45 minutes. Over the next week, Brett came back swinging. He hired Craig Holston, a divorce attorney in Raleigh known for high asset cases and aggressive motions. Lorraine paid the retainer, $15,000. I learned this from the court filings, which listed Holston's firm and fee structure in the opening motion. The counterattack was coordinated and fast. Holston filed a motion arguing that the LLC transfer was a legitimate business transaction at fair market value, supported by documentation Lorraine had prepared. He filed a separate motion to subpoena my medical records, claiming my behavior showed signs of emotional instability linked to postpartum issues. The word postpartum appeared 3 times in a 2-page filing. It was not a medical opinion. It was a weapon shaped like one. Then Jenna filed an affidavit. She stated that I had been contacting her repeatedly, that she feared for her safety, and that she requested a protective order. The woman who had hugged me at her baby shower and called me her best friend was now telling a court that she was afraid of me. And then came Lorraine. She did not file anything. She called my mother. My mother phoned me on a Wednesday afternoon while I was folding Lily's laundry. Her voice had that careful tone she used when she was trying not to take sides, which meant someone had already asked her to take one. "Honey," she said, "Brett's mother called me." She sounded very concerned. "She said you have been acting erratically, that Brett is worried about you, and that he thinks the stress of being a new mother might be affecting your judgment." I set down the laundry. I closed my eyes. I breathed in through my nose and out through my mouth, the way the meditation app on my phone was always telling me to do. The one I had downloaded 6 months ago and used exactly twice. "Mom," I said, "Brett is having an affair with Jenna. He has been hiding money in a shell company run by his mother. I have a lawyer. I have evidence. And I need you to never speak to Lorraine Calloway again." Silence. A long one. The kind where you can hear someone rearranging everything they thought they knew. Then my mother said, "What do you need?" And I said, "I need you to believe me." "I believe you," she said. No hesitation. "No, but are you sure?" "No, let me talk to Brett first." Just 3 words, delivered the way a hand reaches across a table in the dark. It was the first time in 3 weeks that someone other than my lawyer told me I was not crazy. It should not have mattered as much as it did. But it did. I knew from Priscilla's face before she said a word. She was sitting behind her desk with her reading glasses off and her hands folded on top of a stack of papers. And the way she was looking at me was the way doctors look at you when the results are not what they hoped. Not panic, not pity. Just the careful arrangement of someone preparing to deliver information that will cost something. "Holston got a temporary order," Priscilla said. "The LLC transfer remains in effect pending a full hearing. The judge wants to hear both sides before ruling." I sat down. "When is the hearing?" 4 weeks. 4 weeks. The Hanjin deal closed in 3. If the LLC survived until then, Brett's equity would transfer at the pre-deal valuation. And by the time the court got around to examining it, the difference would already be in Lorraine's pocket. "There is more," Priscilla said. Holston challenged the scope of the restraining order. He argued that Brett needs access to certain funds for ongoing business operations. The judge partially lifted the freeze on one of the accounts. I stared at her. "He is moving money." "Not yet." I stood up, sat down again. My hands were doing something on the armrests of the chair, gripping and releasing, gripping and releasing. The way you test a railing before you lean your weight on it. "We are not losing," Priscilla said. "We are being slowed down. This is a standard play. Delay, drain, demoralize. His lawyer is expensive, and his mother is funding it. And their strategy is to make this cost you more than you can afford until you settle for less than you deserve." She said it calmly. She said it the way someone describes weather, and I understood that she had seen this before, probably dozens of times, and that understanding did not help at all. The cost was everywhere now. $8,000 in legal fees and counting. Lily asking where Daddy was every morning, in a voice that expected an answer I did not have. My mother calling every day to check on me, which meant every day I had to sound like someone who was handling things. Brett had moved out, which should have been a relief, but instead turned the house into a museum of a marriage that was still technically happening. And Jenna. Jenna was posting on Instagram photos of her belly in soft light, maternity dresses, captions like blessed and grateful and my little miracle. I scrolled past one that showed a photo from the baby shower, taken by someone I did not recognize, and there I was in the background, smiling, holding my seltzer, standing next to the gift table. Jenna had captioned it, "My girls," with a heart emoji. My girls. She typed that with the same fingers that touched my husband. "He is going to win," I said. "He has his mother's money and her LLC and a lawyer who charges more per hour than I made in a week, and I am sitting here with photographs of credit card statements and a Korean notebook from college, like some kind of Ashley." Priscilla said. "Stop. Like some kind of amateur detective who brought a binder to a gunfight. Stop. Listen to me." Priscilla leaned forward. "His lawyer is good, but his client is sloppy. Sloppy men lose. It just takes longer." I drove home. The house was empty. Lily was at my mother's for the night because I had a headache that was not a headache. It was the weight of 3 weeks pressing down on the space behind my eyes, and I needed one night where nobody called me mama or babe or sweetie or Ashley, in that slow, careful voice people use when they think you are about to break. I sat on the couch with my phone and did the thing you are not supposed to do. I opened Jenna's Instagram and scrolled. Photo after photo. The nursery she was decorating. The crib Brett had probably paid for. A pair of tiny shoes with the caption, "Cannot wait to meet you." I was about to throw my phone across the room when a notification dropped down from the top of the screen. A text from Stacy, a woman from our college friend group who had stayed in loose touch with both of us. "Hey," the message said. "This is weird, but I thought you should see this." There was a screenshot attached. I opened it. It was a text conversation between Jenna and someone named Trey. The messages were 3 weeks old. Jenna had written, "Do not worry. I told him it is his. He does not suspect anything. I just need him until the baby comes and the child support kicks in. Then he is your problem." I read it once. I read it again. I read it a third time. Then I started laughing. Not because it was funny, because Brett Calloway, the man who thought he was the smartest person in every room, the man who had built a shell company and timed a divorce and convinced his mother to hold stolen equity, was being played by a 29-year-old with maxed-out credit cards and a better poker face than his. The baby was not his. Brett had destroyed his marriage, betrayed his wife, conspired with his mother, and hired a $15,000 lawyer to protect assets he was stealing for the sake of a child that did not belong to him. I forwarded the screenshot to Priscilla. "New evidence," I typed. "The baby is not Brett's." Priscilla responded in 2 minutes. "How certain are you?" "Very," I wrote. "Can we get a DNA test ordered by the court?" "Better," Priscilla wrote back. "Let his lawyer request one. They are going to claim child support as a marital expense. When they do, we let them open that door themselves, and then we walk through it." I put my phone down. The house was quiet. The refrigerator hummed. The clock on the wall ticked. Somewhere outside, a dog barked twice and stopped. I went upstairs and checked on Lily's room, even though Lily was not in it. Habit. Her crib was empty. The stuffed rabbit was sitting against the pillow where she had left it. The room smelled like lavender lotion and silence. I came back downstairs and sat on the living room floor with my back against the couch. I did not turn on the lights. I did not turn on the television. I sat in the dark and I pulled the Korean notebook out of my bag and I set it on my knees. I opened it. The pages were soft from years of not being touched. My handwriting looked like someone else's. Someone younger. Someone who pressed the pen harder because she had more to say. Notes in 3 languages on the same line. English for the rules. French for the comparisons. Korean characters drawn with the careful strokes of someone learning to see the world through a different grammar. On one page, near the middle, the 22-year-old version of me had written a sentence that I had forgotten existed. Language is not about words. It is about seeing the world through someone else's grammar. I sat with that sentence for a long time. I did not lose my languages because I got busy. I lost them because Brett never asked about them, and I stopped offering. I let myself shrink to fit inside his version of who I should be. Just a mom. You do not need to work. I will handle the finances. Every sentence he said was a wall, and I helped him build every single one. Lorraine called me sweet but stupid. Brett forgot I could read a contract. Jenna thought I was too trusting to look closely, but none of them invented the version of me they dismissed. I gave them that version. I chose to be small because being small was safe. I started this wanting to take Brett's money. I wanted to destroy him the same way he was destroying me. But sitting on the floor of a house that smelled like my daughter's shampoo and the empty spaces where a husband used to be, I understood that I did not need his destruction. I needed something he could never give me and could never take away. I needed to know that the girl who spoke 4 languages and read 50-page contracts and stayed up until 3 a.m. because she was curious was still in here. Somewhere. I turned to the last page of the notebook. It was blank. It had always been blank. 8 years of nothing written there. I picked up a pen from the coffee table, and I wrote, in Korean, with strokes that shook slightly because the muscle memory was rusty but not gone. 2 words and a period. I am here. Still, I closed the notebook. I put it in my bag, next to the folder of evidence, and the phone full of time-stamped notes and the screenshot of a text message that was about to change everything. Then I stood up. And I knew what I was going to do in the morning. Not destroy Brett. Not punish him. Something harder than that and something better. I was going to take back everything he thought I never had. I walked into Priscilla's office on a Monday morning with the notebook in my bag and a plan that did not look like the one I had walked in with 5 weeks earlier. We let his lawyer request the DNA test, I said. They are going to argue that child support for Jenna's baby should be counted as a marital expense to reduce what I receive. When they do, we agree to the test. We do not fight it. We do not mention the screenshot. Priscilla watched me. Waiting. At the deposition, we present the operating agreement. Clause 14b. The transfer is void without my signature. Then I testify about the Korean conversations. I have the recordings from inside the house. One-party consent. And the DNA? Priscilla asked. The DNA speaks for itself. We do not need to accuse anyone. We just need the results to arrive in the middle of a room where his lawyer has already built a case around a child that is not his. Priscilla was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "This is not the plan of someone who wants revenge." "No," I said. "It is the plan of someone who wants her life back." The deposition was scheduled for a Thursday in Priscilla's conference room. It was not a trial. It was not a courtroom. It was a table in a room with beige walls and a water pitcher and a court reporter in the corner. But it was enough. Brett sat on one side with Craig Holston beside him. Holston was wearing a gray suit and a tie that probably cost more than my grocery bill for the month. He had a leather portfolio and a pen that clicked. He looked like the kind of lawyer who billed for the time it took him to open an envelope. Priscilla sat on my side, reading glasses on. The folder in front of her was the thickest thing on the table. Brett looked at me across the room and tried to smile. I looked at him and did not. Priscilla began. "Mr. Calloway, when was Calloway Pacific Holdings LLC incorporated?" Brett glanced at Holston. "About 2 months ago." And the purpose of the entity? Holston leaned in. Legitimate business restructuring. My client's firm is preparing for a significant contract, and the equity was repositioned accordingly. Repositioned, Priscilla repeated. She did not blink. Funded how? Brett shifted. Personal savings. Personal savings, Priscilla said. Or joint savings. A pause. Holston whispered something. Brett said, from the joint account, but it was income I earned through my firm. Priscilla placed a document on the table. The wire transfer of $180,000 from a joint marital account to an LLC registered solely in your mother's name. Executed 11 days before your girlfriend announced her pregnancy. She let the sentence land. Is that the restructuring you are referring to? Holston objected, but the timeline was on the record. Typed by the court reporter, whose fingers had not stopped moving since the first question. Priscilla reached into her folder and placed the operating agreement on the table. 47 pages. She opened it to a page marked with a yellow tab. Clause 14, subsection B. Priscilla read, any transfer of equity interest by a partner who is married requires the written consent of the spouse if such equity constitutes marital property under applicable state law. She looked at Brett. Mr. Calloway, did your wife sign consent for this transfer? She was not involved in firm business, Brett said. That is not what I asked. Priscilla said, did Ashley Mercer sign a written consent authorizing the transfer of your equity interest to Callaway Pacific Holdings, LLC? No, Brett said. Then the transfer is void under your own partnership's operating agreement, Priscilla said. Your mother is currently holding equity she has no legal right to hold. Holston asked for a break. Brett's face had changed. The composure he had carried into the room was cracking at the edges, the way ice cracks when the temperature shifts too fast. During the break, I walked to the hallway to get water. Brett followed me. He stood 3 feet away and said, in Korean, because it was reflex, because 10 years of hiding behind a language had turned it into instinct. What are you doing? Can we just talk about this? I turned and looked at my husband. I looked at the man who had kissed my forehead on a Sunday morning while planning to steal my future. The man whose mother had called me sweet but stupid in a language she was certain I could not understand. And I answered him. In Korean. Steady voice. Slightly rusty grammar. Perfect pronunciation. Sign the divorce papers? I said. And never speak Korean to me again. Brett's mouth opened. Nothing came out. I watched his eyes move, left to right, like someone scanning a document they suddenly realized they had misread. 5 years of marriage, every conversation he had in Korean in front of me. Every plan he had discussed with Lorraine at the dinner table, in the car, at the baby shower. Every time they had laughed at something I was not supposed to understand. I watched the exact moment he realized I had understood all of it. Every syllable. From the very beginning, he did not say a word. He walked back into the conference room and sat down and stared at the table. Priscilla was waiting. She had one more document. The DNA test your counsel requested has returned results, she said. The child Miss Cole is carrying shows 0 genetic markers consistent with your client. The room went still. Brett looked up. That is not possible, he said. Priscilla slid a piece of paper across the table. The screenshot. Jenna's text to Trey. Every word preserved. Do not worry. I told him it is his. He does not suspect anything. I just need him until the baby comes and the child support kicks in. Then he is your problem. Holston picked it up. Read it. Set it down. He leaned toward Brett and whispered something that made Brett close his eyes. $47,000 in affair spending. An apartment, lingerie, hotels, jewelry, restaurant bills. All of it spent on a relationship built around a child that was never his. Priscilla spoke into the silence. We are prepared to settle. Fair division of marital assets, including equity at post-merger valuation. Primary custody to Miss Mercer. Rehabilitative alimony for 3 years. The alienation of affection suit against Miss Cole remains active and is not part of this negotiation. She paused. Your client has 48 hours. I picked up my bag. The Korean notebook was visible in the side pocket, the navy blue cover worn soft at the edges. I stood up. I walked out of the room. I did not look back. 3 weeks later, I was sitting on the floor of a one-bedroom apartment in a complex off Capitol Boulevard with boxes I had not finished unpacking and a window that looked out over a parking lot. The kitchen counter had flowers on it. Daisies. I had bought them for myself at the grocery store because nobody else was going to. The bookshelf against the wall held 3 things: a framed photo of Lily, a copy of my paralegal certification, and the Korean notebook. Standing upright at eye level, not buried at the bottom of a drawer, Brett signed the settlement. He received his share of the marital assets minus $47,000 in dissipation. I received 50% of his equity at the post-merger valuation, which came to $275,000. Primary custody of Lily. Rehabilitative alimony for 3 years. The house would be sold, and the equity split. Brett confronted Jenna about the DNA results. She admitted everything. He called Lorraine afterward. According to Priscilla, who heard it secondhand from Holston's paralegal, Lorraine did not speak for a long time. The LLC was dissolved. $15,000 in legal fees gone. And worse than the money, the community knew. Brett's partners at the firm knew. The image Lorraine had spent 62 years constructing was cracked in a place she could not plaster over. Jenna was alone. The baby was due in 3 weeks. Trey still was not answering his phone. The alienation of affection lawsuit was pending. She had no lawyer and no money to hire one. I did not celebrate. There was nothing to celebrate. There was only what came next. Lily crawled across the floor of the apartment and climbed into my lap. She was holding a board book, the one with the thick pages and the pictures of animals she liked to point at. She held it up to me and said the 2 words that mattered more than any of the thousands I had spoken or heard or translated in the past 6 weeks. Mama. Read. 2 words. More than her father ever asked me. I opened the book. Lily settled against my chest. The apartment was small and quiet and warm and mine. I turned the page. Lily pointed at a picture of a cat. I said, "Cat." Then, because why not? Because the girl who used to carry 4 languages still lived inside the woman holding this book. I said, "Chat." And then, softly, the Korean word. And then, because she was already laughing, the Spanish. Lily looked up at me. She did not understand the words. She understood that her mother was smiling. Not the mechanical smile from the baby shower. Not the performance smile from the kitchen table. A real one. I used to carry 4 languages. I forgot most of them while I was busy forgetting myself. But here is what I know now. The most important words are not in any language I studied. They are the ones a 2-year-old says when she trusts you enough to ask. I turned the page. Lily pointed at the next picture. I kept reading. She kept listening.